Slide number 3. So this one is called Global Trade Routes Will Continue to be Redrawn. So this one I actually don't like at all. I think it's overcomplicated in contrast to the previous two. It's just really hard to understand what's actually going on this chart. You have 2 charts in one, which is almost always not a good idea. So the left-hand side says, it's about exports of goods globally in real dollars that are pegged back to 2010. And so it says that, in 2022, that export amount was 21.7 trillion, and then in 2032, it will be 28.5. And so that gives you a CAGR, or cumulative growth rate, annually of 2.8%. However, the right-hand side, it's kind of hard to link it to this left-hand side. I'm actually not very clear how the two link together. The title of the chart on the right-hand side seems to be in the top left-hand corner, where it says change in trade of goods in major corridors in 2032 versus 2022. And so I think what the chart is trying to tell you is change in how much trade is happening within specific parts of the globe. The units are in billions, whereas on the left-hand side, the units are in trillions. So that immediately makes it super hard to just reconcile the two together. Then there's the color coding. So it has green, red, and orange. And then the colors are supposed to represent how much change is happening. And then the changes are quite arbitrary. So there's 0%, there's 2.8%, and there's more than 2.8%. And the colors would be either red, orange, or green correspondingly. Then there's also the varying widths of those lines on the chart on the right hand side. Some are thick, some are thin. There's a legend down below that says that the width of arrow represents total change in trade flows between 2032 and 2022, but it looks like the color code already represents the relative amount of change in percentage terms, so I think it might be duplicative. And just in general, it's just super hard to understand what goes where from where. Yes, it's just lots and lots of information here. I think in terms of how you could improve the chart, you could probably just get rid of the left-hand side, because if you're trying to say that there will be change in a positive direction in terms of the exports of goods globally, you can probably already see that just by the amount of green that is presented on the right-hand side. So you don't really need the left-hand side in that case, and then you have less things to look at and less things to analyze as a reader. You could probably also just remove everything that's not material on the right hand side, because one of the footnotes, the footnote 1, or the only footnote, actually says that the corridor represents only 45% of global trade in 2022. So it's already incomplete anyway. So why include all these tiny little changes like -4, -19 when you have huge ones like 616 or 300? So just overcomplicating it and having too many lines, but even then collectively they only give you 45% of coverage of all the information of about the trade flows. Yeah, so it just seems super random there. So if you just removed all the minor ones, it only left the big ones, and maybe instead of the left-hand side chart, you would have shifted the right-hand side chart left. That would have given you a bit of space on the right, and you could have just added some more qualitative commentary to supplement what's happening on the chart in that case. So I think, the thing about charts that you need to keep in mind when building them is that I think people respond well to maybe like 5 to 7 different things. If it's more than 7, it just gets overly complicated. It's hard to understand what's happening. And in this case, there's definitely more than 7 things you need to try to figure out when looking at this chart. More like 15 or 20 different lines. So so that's kind of hard to make sense of. So I think just too much information, not enough white space, information doesn't tie to each other, information is not complete, and also unclear why it's only showing 45%, which is less than half. Too much information you probably don't need to arrive at the same conclusions. So it just doesn't seem to be the best designed slide overall from that perspective. So I'd probably rate it like 1.5 out of 5 or something like that. All right, and then the last chart that they are showing here is this one, which is called Shortages of Key Materials Are Projected by 2030. So you can see a bar chart with about 10 or so different types of commodities: carbon fiber, cobalt, copper, glass fiber, aluminum, etc. And then it gives you total percentages, which stand for the estimated global demand as percentage of supply in 2023 to 2030. So if it's 100%, that's supposed to mean that the demand equals supply, so there's no shortages or overproduction. If there's more than 100%, that seems to imply that there is a shortage of production. And if there's less than 100%, then it seems to imply that there is actually too much supply. And so what I think the chart is trying to tell us is that the top 6 commodities are predicted to have not enough production or shortages happening between 2023 and 2030. The biggest ones being for carbon fiber and cobalt. So overall, I'd probably call it, it's not my favorite slide, honestly. I think it's probably like a 2 out of 5 for me in terms of evaluation. There are a few things I don't like about it. The first thing I don't like about it is just how many colors there are. So there's 2 or 3 different shades. There are 2 different shades of blue, 2 different shades of green, 2 different shades of purple, 2 different shades of pink, 2 different shades of yellow, and then gray. And so that's just too many colors for my simple brain to process. And I think some of the colors highlight things that are just not material. For example, the light blue that stands for solar is almost never a big enough portion of anything, and yet it occupies one of those colors on the legend and in the chart. Same thing for fossil fuel. I don't see any that are dark green that are big. Same for aviation, and also even hydrogen for that matter as well, except for the top one. It's not really present anywhere else. Same for ships. Auto I think is fine because there are some that are big bars. Battery seems fine, and building seems fine, and then other seems fine. So what I was wondering is, could you simplify the chart and either group things that are similar? So for example, wind and solar, and maybe even fossil fuel and grids and storage is all related to energy production and storage. So maybe you could link that and call that all energy. Aviation, ships, and auto, maybe you could group all that and call that transport. Battery and buildings, maybe you could show separately, and so on. So like maybe there's a way how you could recut the buckets and therefore bring the number of colors down so that it looks a lot more elegant in that case. So that would be the biggest thing that I don't like about it. What I do like about it is that it is a simple chart. So it's only a bar chart, nothing too fancy there. I like also the orange highlight, or the orange or the light purple or whatever is that color, that highlights all those commodities that are projected to have scarcity. There's a little arrow there as well. I'm not sure what's the purpose of that arrow, but it points from right to left. I don't know if there's any significance there. And so I think you can sort of make sense of what's happening and what are the key conclusions between looking at that highlighted area and also reading the action title. But overall, I just don't find this slide to be attractive or well designed. So maybe it's not 2, maybe it's 2.5 or something, but definitely not a 4 or above in my book. So there you have it. We've looked at 4 different charts from the same article produced by BCG. It's funny how it's the same article, but the 4 charts just seem to be at varying levels of quality. And so you would have thought that if the charts are part of the same article, at least there'd be some sort of uniformity because it would have been the same team producing those charts. But I think what might have happened is it was 4 different people, or maybe 2 different people producing those charts. And so they had 2 different or 4 different sets of tastes and what they thought was good. And then nobody really integrated everything together to make it more uniform in terms of quality and stylistic choices. And so that's how you ended up with a single article but has 4 different levels of quality in the charts. None of them are super horrible, but yeah, I think some of them definitely have a lot of room for improvement, at least to my eye. So that's how I would look at these charts and the conclusions I would make. Anyhow, so thanks for watching this. Let us know what you thought in the comments, and then also don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.